Okay, so profitability is obviously critical to the success of any business. And unfortunately, many e-commerce companies are low on profit when they actually should be high on profit. E-commerce allows you to scale and manage price and do all these different things, yet so many companies are low on profit, often losing money. Why is that? Because they don't pay attention to it. They don't pay attention to profit, and they don't engineer a business model that generates profit with intention. And it's not because we're lazy. It's because we get caught up in top line numbers and exciting different tactics, and we're missing or ignoring unintentionally bottom line numbers. And so today we're going to show you how you can increase the profitability of your e-commerce channel without doing everything yourself and without just getting more sales, which, by the way, it doesn't work anyway, right? That just increases the problem. So let's get into it. All right. So many times I talk to e-commerce brands that essentially look like and say that they're killing it, and they believe it on the outside. On the outside, it looks like they're just doing amazing, right? Because you get tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue. And oftentimes you find out that, and unfortunately many times you find out that they're barely making money at the bottom line, or worse, they're losing money. And so this happens more often than it should. And it's because everyone looks at revenue growth as the first thing, and very rarely do people look at profit because it's not easy to see, it's not often easy to calculate, it takes work to find out, etc. And the truth is, a smaller business with higher profit is clearly way better than a large business with less profit or very little profit, because a large business takes more headache. And so if you're going to have more headache, you might as well have better profit, right? Why would you have a very low profit margin on higher business and have the headache that goes along with it? And also, if you're ever looking to sell your business and you want to be valued at a good rate, your value is going to be based on profit, most likely, not revenue. Now, sure, certain business models value revenue, especially recurring revenue, but typically it's based on profitability, and that's what's going to make you valuable. And why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, managing e-commerce companies, consulting with big e-commerce brands, helping them grow in really, really healthy ways. That means their marketing that also goes down to their profitability. And we have a capital arm that owns and manages e-commerce businesses. And so we're in this daily. The thing about the e-commerce channel is it's one of the channels that has the ability to scale with profit. So you're missing the benefit of e-com if you're doing it without profit. And the question to ask yourself is, why isn't this happening? How can you increase profit without doing everything yourself and clearly without selling more, which, doesn't work. But some people think sales fix everything, and they don't in this case. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about a benchmark. What should your profitability look like? What is your goal with profitability and where you're trying to get? Before we get into anything else, we need to start here. And so in general, your net profit of your business should be in the 20 to 30% range, right? 25% would be really, 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 really good compared to a lot of other e-commerce businesses. 30 is really where you need to be, and you need to push higher if possible. But you may not choose to be in that profit margin, and that's okay. If you're choosing it intentionally, like you're in a growth phase and you're looking at investing profit into more growth, that's totally fine. As long as you're doing it knowingly and not unintentionally. That's the difference. And so if you're not in that range, that's okay, as long as you understand why you're not in that range and you're doing it intentionally, or you understand you're not in that range and you're trying to figure out how to get there. The problem is that most e-commerce companies are closer to 10% or are lower, or worse, they're losing money and they don't know it. And that happens especially for early stage companies. And that's a problem. That's why so many companies go out of business. That's why so many companies think they're doing well and they find out that they're not. And we want to help you avoid that. And so how do we increase profit? Well, we only can increase profit in two ways, right? It's either increase your price or lower your expenses. That's it. There's no other way to increase profit. Sales doesn't increase profit. Nothing else increases profit. Those are the only two things that change the bar for profit. And so let's get into the specifics for increasing the profit of your e-commerce channel. The first one is dial in your gross margins. These are your product margins, right? Not net margins, but your product margins. Margins are what we call a golden e-commerce multiplier, and you can go watch videos on that. You can read about it. It is a key metric to the success of your e-commerce business, period. It's the key metric to the success of any company, but certainly in e-commerce. If you get this wrong, you won't have the money to invest into marketing, to invest into customer service, to create fans, to invest into product development, to create lifetime value, so that you can sell more to your customers, that they love you. You won't have any of that stuff if you get this wrong. And so this is the critical part to start with. It's actually one of the core criteria that we use when we're valuing companies in our capital arm, or even inside of Medicate when we're trying to see, hey, what's wrong here with this company that's coming to us to look for growth? And margins are actually one of the critical metrics we look at. Now, if you have a bunch of different products, take your weighted average product margin. That means, based on the top selling products, right? What's the percent of each product that it sells, and then what is its product margin? And then what is that weighted average between your product line? Now, your margin should be, in our opinion, no less than 80%, or that is 5 times cost of goods sold to your price. So that means if you buy something at $1, you sell it at $5. But really, it needs to be more like 10 times. And actually, the best brands that we've seen deliver tons of value to their customers and create a lot of value in their business are closer to 30 times. Now, that may seem like a lot to you, but it really isn't. And if you think about other business models where, let's say, your cell phone, their marginal cost to add you as a cell phone customer, which might be $150 a month, is essentially zero. And so 30 times product margin is not that much when you have essentially thousands of times in other business models like software, etc. And so you should be really shooting for that. This is where it all starts. And so, of course, you have to still provide extreme value no matter what the price that you're selling for is, no matter what the price that you buy it for is. And this is the secret sauce to your business, right? How do you do that? This is why product planning and research and development strategy are so important, and that you do them with product margin in mind, because you need to be creating products and developing products that fit this model so that you can be a successful business. And so what can you do with your currently right now with your current products and future products, right? First, you can negotiate to lower your current product cost and to increase your current margins. You can also cut back on things that don't reduce the customer experience or the quality of your product. And that might be packing materials and other things that go into the shipping aspect and fulfillment aspect, or even like things that you might include with your product. That, again, without reducing the customer experience or quality. The next thing you can do is you can develop new products, right, that have higher margins. And you can also plan ahead with your supply chain. And we talk about this more in a supply chain talk. But essentially, planning ahead and being able to project and forecast what you're going to need allows you to make potentially bigger orders, which reduces your product cost, and also allows you to use slower shipment to you from the manufacturer, assuming that you manufacture elsewhere. And that typically costs a lot less than faster shipment options like air freight and those kind of things. But if you don't plan for that, you don't have that as an option. So you have to plan and forecast. So that's the first thing. Dial in product margin. Second thing is negotiate. And so this comes down to everything, right? Inside of e-com, you have a lot of different costs all over the place. You have credit card rates, right, which you can negotiate from if you do a certain volume, and you might have to do that over time. Platform costs, for different tools and things that you use, shipping costs, packaging costs, all those things typically come with scale. So the more volume you do, the more ability you have to negotiate. So you should be doing that. You should be assessing that every quarter, every year as you kind of hit certain milestones. The third thing is more efficient marketing. Now, we could spend an hour in this area, and this is what we do. And so we've got tons of resources and videos and courses and products that you can buy, store.metacake.com, and other places like that. If you want to get more efficient at your marketing, we have a bootcamp course, which is metacake.com/e-commerce bootcamp, which tells you how to really scale your marketing with promotions in a profitable way. That's not chaotic. There's a bunch that you could do here, but let me run through a few things. One is rein in your ad costs. And so, when we look at ad costs, we look at ad spend to revenue ratio. And that is the golden metric. We talk about that in several other videos. If you're not using that metric, you need to start using it. It's better than attribution. It's better than all the other things. That's the golden metric. And it needs to be 35% or so range or lower. The lower that you can get it, the better. But most brands are in that 35% range. If they're in a growth phase, they may even dip into the 40+% range, but not for a long period of time because you can't really sustain that. So that's the first thing inside of making your marketing more efficient. Another thing is increasing your conversion rate, obviously, right? The more you can increase your conversion rate, you make more for less spend, or actually your ad dollars go further. So conversion rate, and we have tons of resources on conversion rate optimization. We have a conversion rate optimization playbook that you can download or buy. There's a bunch more on that, but that is something that when you invest there, it makes everything else better and more efficient. Invest in email. Email doesn't cost every time you send it. Email should be 30+% of your revenue, and if it's not, it has the opportunity to be. And it's a really powerful tool, but you have to curate it and you have to look at it as an asset that you want to mine over time. And we have tons of information on how you create a great email, revenue producing email system in your e-commerce business. And we'll put some links to some of those resources below. Next is focus on lifetime value. Lifetime value is one of the golden multipliers of e-commerce. And if you know anything about e-commerce business, you really can't scale past a certain point if you don't have lifetime value. Lifetime value allows you to pay once to get a customer in and then pay marginally to get them to continue to buy if you do it right. And that is one of the critical aspects of any brand, and we'll put some links to more resources on that here as well. And then SEO is another opportunity, right? Because the more that you invest there over time, it's basically free traffic that you don't have to pay for. And anywhere you can get free traffic as an asset that you don't have to pay for is a good thing. Ambassadors are also critical in, again, not having to pay for every eyeball. And that's where you want to diversify your marketing channels. And we will link to some articles and some resources about how you diversify your marketing channels in some of those ways. And so that is the third thing, make your marketing more efficient. All right, the fourth thing, assess your expenses. And so in this area, we did several videos and we have resources on creating SOPs. And SOPs seem boring to a lot of people, but they are ways that you can reduce human inefficiency and actually increase scale. And so you should use systems and SOPs to put humans where they belong, in where only humans can do, and also help humans scale better and run systems and create systems. This gets your payroll down, right? Because if you have more human beings doing things that they shouldn't be doing, then that actually increases your costs significantly. And so you want to be really efficient on where humans are used and use machines and all the technology and systems and processes to get you there. You also want to look at your recurring expenses regularly, probably quarterly or annually at the least. And these include, all the tools that you use for marketing, platforms, etc. Raise your prices is another way to increase your profit. And now, if you're going to raise your prices, you have to do this in a smart way, right? And so doing pricing split testing is one way to do that. The other way is you can raise your price and you can work on your offer. Your offer is, and we have many more resources about how you create a really great, irresistible e-commerce offer. But your offer is what creates the value in the customer's mind. And the more value that you can create, some call it a value gap. So if your cost is X and the value in your customer's mind is Y, the bigger that gap is, the more profit that you have. And so your offer is a critical place to focus on if you want to increase profit in your business. We'll link to some resources as well on those. The other one is dial in your brand. Your brand is your profit generator, right? Because your competitors can rip off your product. They can't rip off your brand. Your brand is where it creates value and emotion in the customer's mind, and it's where profit is created, but you have to build on it over time, and you have to believe in that method. And we have books on that, and we have resources on that, and we have courses, etc., on how you create a profitable, valuable e-commerce brand that we'll link to. And all of these things create more value in the customer's mind, which allow you to raise your prices. And if you can raise your prices and create more value in doing that, then you can increase your margins. All right, the next thing is increase your average order value. And we talk a lot about, and we break down average order value. Average order value is one of those golden multipliers for e-commerce businesses. And it's golden because it's a lever you can pull and has exponential returns. It essentially means you get more for every purchase, which means your ad spend goes farther and your marketing is more efficient. All the things happen better when average order value goes up. And so there are strategies for upsells and cross-sells and post-sale upsells and cross-sells, which all may sound confusing, but you should know what those mean. And we'll link to resources and where you can dig in more to that. Use a hybrid of in-source and outsourced resources. And so we've actually dug into how you make the decision whether or not to in-source or outsource something on your team. Some things are more efficient in-house, and it really depends business to business, but things like customer service really should be, at least the leadership of customer service should be in-house, because it's because of the branding and the voice and the knowledge that really has to come from within, that you don't really want to just outsource completely, because you'll seem generic and you might not be able to create fans in the same way that you could if they were part of your culture. And so customer service is the front line of fan creation, and that might be something that you want to keep in-house. But some things are more efficient to be outsourced, like maybe the specialties on your marketing team, which is a lot of what we do for a lot of businesses, or certain other specialties like product design when you're at a certain point and engineering at a certain point. Some of those types of roles are best to be outsourced, mainly because they're really expensive to hire in. They are also rarer, so they're harder to find. And you have to realize that every time you hire somebody, you have to hire leadership and other people around them to guide them, to lead them, to manage those people, and to teach them. And you're gonna have to teach them yourself if you're the leader as well. And so hiring is always more expensive than it seems, and only right at the certain stages of business. And so some of those things you might want to outsource because you want to be in your business, which is creating your product. You don't You want to be careful about getting into other businesses, which may be a technology business or a marketing business, unless you're intentional about doing that. You realize that you're becoming that. And so just to kind of wrap this up, profit is so critical to any business, especially e-commerce businesses. And there's so much opportunity to create massive profit inside of e-commerce businesses and still deliver extreme value. But it's not as valuable, it's not as glamorous as revenue. So people don't focus on it as much. People focus on bringing sales in over and over and over again, making it rain and all that kind of stuff. But profit is the key. So automating your e-commerce business is one great way to bring efficiencies to a bunch of different areas, right? And we've talked a lot about creating healthy businesses, and how it's often the case that there's a lot of revenue, but not a lot of profit. And that's not often figured out until it's too late, right? And so we want to create healthy businesses. And one way to do that is to create efficiencies using automations inside of our business in all different places, not just email automation, but creating efficiencies across the entire business. That's why e-commerce is powerful, because it has the ability to be efficient and to scale. And so many businesses are unhealthy and have no profit. And this gets even worse when there are bad economic climates and challenges in the business environment. And so bringing back profit is the key. And we've worked with hundreds of brands collectively doing several billions of dollars over 11 years. And there are some commonalities on how to create efficiencies and successful businesses using automations and high profitable activities. And so today we're going to go through 12 ways you can automate and increase profit in your e-commerce business. And here's the case: profit is hiding everywhere. You just need to know where to look. And so this list will hopefully bring profit back into your organization or increase your profit that you already have. So let's get right into it. Okay, number one, reduce platform complexity. And so the question here is, are you on the right e-commerce platform? You might be on platforms like Magento, WooCommerce, Salesforce, and those platforms may have complex infrastructure. It may be hard to, or you have to have an IT team, you have to have developers. There's a lot more costs attached to those platforms. They're also typically slower to change things, right? Launching features, launching promotions, those kind of things can be more challenging. And you can break the site. You can take the site down, right? And so maybe you're on the wrong platform. Maybe you need to move from Magento to Shopify Plus. And if you do, by the way, we have a guide over here on some of the pros and cons, and we've done both. We work with brands on Shopify Plus. We work with brands on Magento. We've moved between the two. The question is, are you on the right one? And so the second part of that is maybe you're on a platform that is too simple for you, right? Maybe you're on Shopify Plus and it's overly simplistic and you can't build the automations and customizations that you might need to actually help bring efficiency to your business, right? Now, it will take typically a higher capital expense to be on a Magento, but if you have a business that is more that you need more customizations done to, that you can get more revenue out if you could adjust things that you're not able to on Shopify Plus, maybe Magento is good for you. Either way, the question is, are you on the right platform to help you reduce the complexity in your business, reduce the cost in your business? And for most people, a platform like Shopify Plus is actually a really good one. And it also creates a lot of efficiencies. And so that is the first one, reduce platform complexity. And by the way, if you want to talk through that, you have some questions about your platform, reach out to me and I'd love to help you there. Number two, streamline your marketing tools. And so getting everyone on the same platforms and the same tools, using the same tools, is a great organizational efficiency, right? You can create SOPs around it. You can teach people around it. You can launch promotions faster, all these different things. And the reason I mention this one here is because marketers tend to be distracted with new tools. Like, that is the shiny object syndrome happens with marketers, right? Like, there's this cool tool that does this thing and it looks really awesome. Let's all move to that thing. But the truth is that conceding some features for the ability to have everybody on the same page in your organization provides you with so much more efficiency that actually translates to profit, typically than moving to a new tool or having a bunch of different tools. Number 3, follow a proven process for creating, running, and scaling your promotions all year long. And so we've run about 10 plus brands at the same time through yearly marketing activities and promotions, and even the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Q4 period of time. At any given time, we're running 10 plus brands and we have to manage all those promotions in a scalable way. And so a long time ago, we needed to create a system and a process for actually scaling those promotions, helping to organize them, and actually launching them and running them at scale. And also while they're being effective, while those promotions are effective, making sure that they're as successful as they could be, and they're not just throwing things against the wall and hoping that they work. And so one of the core tools that we use is called an integrated marketing planner. And we actually have a resource that I can link to, and it's a free tool. You can download it and use it for your own business. But we also created a course called the Ecommerce Bootcamp, which you can get at medicate.com/ecommerce-bootcamp, which actually runs you through the entire system for basically the operating system for running your e-commerce marketing all year long in a scalable, profitable way. And so however you do it, whether you take advantage of those things or not, having a scalable system for launching promotions, not a chaotic system where you launch something, you don't tell customer service, and you get the banners ready and you're not sure if the sale is the right sale, and you figured you just try this one because you saw it over there, or you make a complicated promotion, all those different things, right, that end up leading to lower profit and lower success for the sale. Let's remove all those things. Let's get you in the promotions and product launches are the lifeblood for, I didn't say sales, but promotions, the lifeblood of e-commerce marketing. And so doing them in a really scalable and effective way is one that will profit the business. Also, typically the biggest expense in the e-commerce business is the marketing budget. And that's okay, but that can really quickly get out of hand. And so bringing that down to where it's efficient is actually translates to real profit and real efficiency in the business. So that's why I mentioned that. All right, number 4, leverage great email marketing. Okay, and so we've talked a lot about the value of owned email marketing, or email marketing, which is owned. It should be 30+% of your revenue. If it's not, you're probably not leveraging it right, and you probably need to look at that, maybe reach out to us. There are certain flows that you can certainly do, which pre-purchase, post-purchase flows, those can be automated. And you also need a scalable system for executing really great e-commerce email marketing. If you'd like a resource on that, we have the ultimate guide to e-commerce email success, which you can grab, and I'll link to that below. Or there's tons of free resources that we can link to as well. But leveraging great email marketing will bring revenue in at a lower cost to your business, especially if you live mostly on pay-per-click. All right, number 5, know what you're going to say. Creating a scalable content calendar and promotions calendar is key. And I mentioned the integrated marketing planner above. I can link to that again, but that is a way to make sure that you can set your content your entire year up for success before it happens. And then while you're going through it, you can make small adjustments, but you're really just executing. And so that is one automation, is once you know what you're going to say in advance, you can schedule things, you can schedule promotions, you can do all that kind of stuff, social posts, blog posts, all that stuff can be automated and scheduled after you do that. Number 6, make decisions easily. And so a good CRO program, conversion reoptimization program, and a data-driven mentality, both those things we actually have tons more education on, which we can link to. If you take advantage of that, it will remove all the opinions that are on the table, right? So we've all been in those marketing meetings or those product meetings where everyone has an opinion on what should happen, maybe the website design meeting. And that slows things down, okay? Opinions that have to be sorted out and then run, and often in most organizations, they actually run down the path and they realize, oh, we didn't think about this thing that actually doesn't work and it broke. Organizations waste so much time running down paths based on the opinions and not the actual customer's opinions, that a good conversion rate optimization program where you're getting data and you're testing things and you're letting the customer talk and having a data-driven approach will remove all those opinions and make decisions easy to make. And so it will just be obvious, right? You can know what to sell, you can know what to promote, and you can know what you should say to your customers, and you can know it without any questions. And so make decisions easily using CRO and data. Number 7, scale your customer service. And we've talked a lot about our philosophy on the perfect customer service page. It's actually part of a series of 10 pages, which we call the perfect e-commerce website. There's a strategy for how you sell a customer. The customer service page, how it's laid out, matters to how much customer service inquiries you get and how frustrated your customers might be or how they can self-solve their own problems. And so structuring that correctly is important. And then using tools that will automate certain aspects of customer service, like the tool called Gorgeous on Shopify. It's a customer service tool that actually handles through AI certain customer service common inquiries like, where's my order, or what's my tracking number, those kind of things. Leveraging those tools and also putting in place a system to create an efficient customer service flow and streamlining that will create a lot of efficiency in your customer service team and create a lot of value to your customers through that. We say customer service is the front line of fan creation. And so you don't want to skimp on that, but you want to create efficiencies on that. You want human beings only working on things that human beings can add a lot of value to. All right, number 8, remove manual back office processes. And so you can leverage workflow tools like Shopify Flow if you have Shopify Plus. It's a valuable tool that allows you to create workflows and automate all sorts of things post-sale. So like if an order comes in with a company name on it, send that to your maybe your B2B team and let them know because they need to reach out to that company and that you might want to create some sort of relationship with it. All sorts of like inventory notifications, things that you would normally manually do, sifting through orders, have your team manually do. A good workflow tool will help you do that in an efficient way and do that for you. Number 9, manage product data in one place. And so if you have a complex product data set, using something like a product information manager, a PIM, P-I-M, to keep things organized would be a really good idea to look at. And then all the places it goes to, you might have a Shopify store, you might have a wholesale link, you might have all different other places, Amazon marketplaces, that the customer data can be managed in one single place and organized in one place, and it just automatically sends it to the different channels. Number 10, scale wholesale and B2B channel management using technology. And so B2B and wholesale tools that allow more self-service of the end customers, right? So if you have a wholesale team that's working with various different types of wholesalers and retailers, the smaller ones probably prefer more self-service. And there are tools, if you use certain platforms like Shopify Plus and Magento and other platforms, there are ways to create really good wholesale portals where you can relieve the effort of your current in-house team that has to manually create orders and manage relationships, do all that kind of stuff, and at least relieve it for a majority of your retailers and wholesalers. And so that is one to create a lot of efficiency. Number 11, create SOPs for every area of your business, especially the marketing area. And so I'll link to a bunch of content that we created on how to create SOPs and what types you should create inside of your e-commerce business. But the more you can create standard operating procedures, especially in the marketing area of things, the more efficient you'll be, but also in marketing and most of those areas, the more efficient your marketing will be. Again, the marketing spend is typically the highest spend in the e-commerce business. So if you can make that more efficient, because we've documented our philosophy, our framework for success, what we see as being successful, if you can do that and scale that, you can create a lot more results from your marketing just using standard operating procedures. All right, number 12, outsource your marketing, your strategy, and possibly your execution. And so I end with this one to say, there's a value in a highly experienced and specialized team, a team like Medicake, for example, like what we do, that you can hand off entire areas of your business to, a team that can add value because they're a team that does it every day for lots of different businesses. And so they can give you insight into maybe how to do it more efficiently and better, and get better results. And that actually brings organizational improvement to your company. Leveraging those teams to do certain things can free you up tremendously. Now you may say you might perceivably pay a higher cost at the beginning for that, but the truth is actually nets out probably be a lot less money than hiring all the different roles in-house and then managing them and then worrying about them. So one way to create massive efficiency is to potentially outsource to the right partners or to get outside advice that will help you skip steps and avoid some of the failures that normally would happen. And if anything like that is interesting to you, you can reach out to us. There's probably other teams out there that are good as well. And we can talk about if that's right for you. Okay, so in kind of conclusion, profit is something that is obviously important, but many e-commerce companies and businesses just aren't looking at it. They're looking at revenue numbers and making sure revenue numbers go up and they continue to go up, but they're looking at profit in the rearview mirror. And sadly, oftentimes they're not profiting, or they're going out of business, or they're not profiting as much as they probably could. And they're not healthy businesses. Our goal is to create healthy e-commerce businesses and really scale those businesses. Okay, so everyone thinks we throw up an e-commerce site and we start making sales, and if it's not working, we worry about the marketing side of it. Maybe we'll do some optimization. But the truth is that there are 9 steps that you have to take somebody through in order to win the sale and win it at a maximum level. Okay, so is your conversion rate under 4% when you're at scale? Is your average order value not sustaining your cost per acquisition? Is your paid marketing not working or not really working well? So what you may not know is that there are these 9 steps in order to close a sale in the e-commerce world. And if you're missing even one, your performance is going to be limited, or you may not make the sale and your marketing may suffer. And so today we're going to go through all of those steps and we'll show you how you can begin to fix and improve your e-commerce channel using them. First, let's just talk about what e-commerce is, right? And e-commerce is centered on the website, right? That is where the sale happens. And so we can't just throw up a website that looks pretty. We have to throw up a website with a strategy in mind. Yet so many sites are built and designed without a really intentional strategy for winning the sale. And something like the homepage becomes a collection of just things that the marketing or leadership team wants to be on the homepage. It's almost like a random closet of stuff. When the homepage should have a specific strategy. There's a specific strategy for the homepage and how it's laid out. And by the way, none of those things I mentioned come from customer feedback. Sometimes many people don't really think about how to handle different customer types. And if we're selling to not just for the initial purchase, but also maximizing the sale for future purchases or even increasing the average order value through other products. And so we've been helping e-commerce businesses, small and very large, grow over the last 10 plus years through site design and marketing and strategy. And when it comes to designing your website, there are 9 steps that you have to take the customer through in order to close the sale and also close at a high performing rate. And over the years, we've developed these 9 steps, and they're always there. Some element is always there in a successful store. And so if you'd like help implementing these steps, then I have a special offer for you to get started implementing these easily at the end of the video today. And by the way, these work on any platform. This could be Shopify Plus, BigCommerce, Enterprise, Magento, WooCommerce, etc. They're just not platform dependent because the user doesn't care about what platform you're on. But there are certain platforms that make implementing these things easier, or also doing them in a fast and scalable way when the way your store operates. And so if you'd like to learn more about the various platforms like Shopify Plus, Magento, BigCommerce Enterprise, WooCommerce, and all those things, and sort of the differences and features and benefits and when you should use those, we'll actually link to another video, an article talking through what those differences are. Okay, so let's jump into the 9 steps to closing the e-commerce sale. Number 1, orient and excite. Okay, so step 1 is making sure someone knows why they're at your site and why they should stay. All right, so this is done really typically in the first 5 seconds. And the biggest thing that communicates this is the way your hero image is designed. And so your hero and your homepage are what do this. And it needs to show them where they are. It needs to connect them to any marketing that got them there, right? So we need to make sure that the scent trail, as we call it, like the sale or the creative or whatever is similar. So it's not a reaction, sudden reaction that they didn't expect. And then we need to communicate why they should stay at our store. So that means it needs to have a compelling reason. That could be the story, that could be the offer, that could be the features and benefits, who knows what, but that needs to be a compelling reason. That has to happen statistically in the first 5 seconds, all right? So visuals and not so many words. Visuals are a big part of this, and concise words. And so that's the first thing, orient and excite. The second thing is now we have to create an emotional connection and build our brand quickly. And so we've talked about this quite a bit, and there's quite a lot of science behind this, but we all know that as humans, emotions drive actions, not information. A list of features and benefits is not typically what drives action. It's what rationalizes action. But action is driven through emotion. And so we all think about like that feeling we get when we see something that we want to buy. It might be a car, could be the latest Apple iPhone, could be something like that. That's emotion that's driving that desire. And it's a strong thing. It's why people make impulse purchases and why people have buyer's remorse. And so we need to leverage emotion, and then create action. Now we use that emotion, then we back it up with information. So this emotion might be it's comes across in a few different ways, but it's the way you display your products, and literally like the creativity and beauty behind it might be one part of it. It's often the story behind your product or your brand, and literally in an emotion that you want to create in the person that is looking at your product. That emotion might be excitement. For a company like Groove Life, it's adventure. That emotion could be fear-based, but we want to create an emotion that sticks and causes action to happen. And this has happened, by the way, these things happen throughout your site. And there are also 3 cells, SELLS, that you have to make for every sale. And that the first one is emotional sell. You have to sell them emotionally. The second is logical. You have to sell them logically. You have to let them rationalize their decision. And the third is urgency. And this is for people that sit on the fence, that may not budge with those 2 things, or may budge. They want to do it, but they won't do it unless they're kind of pushed to do it. And we kind of go deeper into those 3 philosophies in other articles that we can link to. This is also comes across in story and features and benefits, right? And so we talk often about how your brand needs to have a purpose behind it. And that's not because it's not just a feel-good thing to do. It's a really logical business thing to do. If you have a purpose and a strong purpose, then you'll have a story. And that story is what's going to create the emotion in the customer to actually align with your beliefs and your story and purchase, or feel compelled to purchase, or not. And having that story is really important. The features and benefits then back that up through the rational side of things. And if you get this wrong, then you're going to get some sales, right? Some people, you're not going to get no sales. If you get this wrong, you don't build in this emotional connection, you'll win some sales, but you can win a lot more sales if you do this right. And if you get this wrong, you don't include emotion, you'll have a customer, but you may not have a fan and a person that continues to purchase over and over again. And those are critical to a healthy brand. And so an emotional connection is critical. So that's why it's number 2. Number 3, you need to get them on their journey and fast. And so when someone gets to your website, whether it's a product detail page, a collection, or a homepage is probably most typical, but we talk about the need for landing pages and other things as we kind of go through this journey. You need to get the customer down their path as fast as possible. Don't make it hard for them to find things. Now, how do you do that? Well, there are 2 types of customers to consider. The first one is the browser, and that's someone who may not know exactly what they want. They're still looking around and they're still kind of collecting information. They're understanding your brand and your products, and they're trying to figure out what they want. So you have to accommodate that person. And then there's the person that is what we call the laser, and that's someone that knows what they want. Now think about this. It may not just be the product. They may not know the product they want, but they know the result they want. They know the solution that they need. They have a pain that is specific that they're trying to solve. You have to accommodate both people, and every brand has to do that in a little bit of a different way, but you do have to do that. If you don't, then you're alienating a whole swath of people, and you're making it hard for them to find what they need. And ultimately, the harder that it is, the less sales that you'll make. And so your design has to accommodate both people. Your homepage, which a lot of people land on, has to be crafted in a way that appropriately sells to those 2 different people, has appropriate options laid out for those 2 types of people, and also talks about your story and other things in context without reducing the conversion. Your navigation also has to do this really, really well. And so your navigation can't just be a giant nav, and it can't just be a small nav. You have to think through the structure of how you structure things with intentionality, so that you're building someone into your, acclimating someone into your world, and you're helping them get to where they need to get as fast as possible. Number 4, build trust. And so this is a big one. If there were one of the biggest factors to changing your conversion rate, it's how much trust that you can build. And so this is really high up on the list. This is why it's number 4. You have to do this throughout your site design and really throughout your marketing as well. One of the best ways to do that is through social proof. And so if you're in e-commerce, you need to really leverage reviews and the ability to aggregate reviews, to incentivize people to give you reviews, in order your ability to respond to reviews and to take negative criticism appropriately, and also your ability to syndicate, send those reviews to other platforms to extend that social proof. But it doesn't just stop with reviews. It also goes on to aggregating media and user-generated content from people. So that might be, we do that in post-purchase sequences and other types of incentive places where we want to get people to send us videos and send us photos. Those are the assets that will convince someone, because a customer is more likely to purchase because someone else said that you're great versus you saying that you're great. And that's where trust building and social proof comes in. Now, this also extends into places like security badges and making sure that you're on a platform like a Shopify Plus or BigCommerce Enterprise or Magento, or something that is stable and is not going to go down and doesn't look shady and takes care of their information and credit card, privacy situations, and care attached to how you deal with their information and email address. This is all part of trust. Your brand itself is part of trust. Having a brand develops trust. Having a brand that other people have heard about, but even if you're new, having a brand that when they come to it looks like it's filled out, looks like it has purpose, looks like it has a story, those things all build trust. And we all know the difference between shopping on a store that you've never heard of, that seems like someone's just trying to make $1, versus a brand that you've never heard of that actually seems like it's developed and has purpose and has thoughtful products and those kind of things. And you want to do that. And so we have a whole bunch of resources on how you build trust, but trust is number 4. Number 5, remove all perceived risk, or as much perceived risk as you can. And so part of making an offer that someone cannot refuse is removing all the risk from the purchase. And so if the ideal scenario is someone can purchase this, and if they don't like it, they can get their money back easily. If that's the ideal scenario for a customer and that removes as much risk as possible, then how can we get close to that? Maybe you can do that. If you can't do that, then what can you do? How can you remove all risk? Now, by the way, not all risk is time. Some risk is that it doesn't work, depending on the type of product that you have, right? Someone is looking for a solution that they need an answer to, and it not working is worse than them losing their money. It could be, the risk could be in a bunch of different areas. And so think about what the barrier to purchase is on that front. And there are probably several. There are probably several objections that your customers have in their mind, and start to stamp those out. You do that through warranty, through customer service, through high quality product and communicating that product, through FAQs and dealing with objections and questions that the customer may have early on the page, maybe even before they think about it. You can also do those things in your marketing, by the way. And by the way, your product margin is important here, because if you don't get your product margin dialed in to where it can sustain removing risk, or at least removing the risk that you say that you are going to remove, your promise, if you can't sustain that, then you're going to go out of business. And so your product margin is really critical here. All right, number 6, communicate value. And this is obvious. It seems obvious, but maybe it's not easy to do all the time. And people need this. So when when you're asking someone to give you their money or their time in return for your product, ideally, the bigger the gap between what it costs them, that could be time or money or other things, what it costs them and what it does in value for them, the bigger that gap, the easier it is to close that. And that's called the offer. And so you want to create an irresistible offer. You want to make sure that you communicate how much value they get in return for how much less the cost is. And that's called the value stack. And there's a bunch of other names for it. We'll link to resources to actually build an irresistible offer and how you create a value stack and those kind of things as well. Number 7, maximize the sale. And now, getting the sale is not enough typically. Like typically someone comes in for a certain type of product, and ideally, and we've talked about this in many other places, to be a healthy e-commerce brand, right? You need to have a product line that allows for lifetime value to grow and for average order value to increase. And so it's not just good enough to get the sale, you want to maximize the sale. And that is in things like upsells and cross sells. Now, you can only have upsells and cross sells if you have a product line that is developed. And so you have to have R&D, and you have to have you have to invest in R&D, and you have to have a really great product line. If you don't have an extensive product line and a family of products, also things like membership programs or subscription programs are ways to maximize the sale and ways to think about this. How can you add value through subscription? Is that possible? How can you add value through membership? Is that possible? And then also using post-purchase sequences and post-purchase upsells in order to maximize the sale are other ways of doing this. And we can kind of dig into those in other articles as well. Number 8, win back those who don't purchase. Now, there's going to be a bunch of people who don't actually purchase, right? If your conversion rate is great, it might be 4 or 5%. Let's say it's 5%. That means 95% of people are not going to purchase. 95% of traffic that comes to your site is not going to actually end in a purchase, at least not then. And so we want to figure out how we can maximize that traffic. And so winning back the people who don't purchase or making the most of those people is critical. How do you do that? Well, first, you do it through email. Let's try and incentivize people to give us their email address or another method, an SMS, so that we can talk to them even if they don't purchase. And we can start communicating to them value. And if they don't want to hear from us, they can unsubscribe. But they just may not be sure, or it may not be the right time. And so we need to get them into our list and actually start to curate them and talk to them and build a relationship with them through pre-purchase email sequences and pre-purchase emails, content emails, brand emails, sales, etc. And we talk about all that kind of stuff in depth in other places. You also need to maximize your abandoned cart flow, right? So there are people that get to a certain point in the process, and then they don't complete the sale, and that happens all the time, right? And it happens for legitimate reasons, and reasons that may just pop up in their life. Maybe their internet went out. Maybe someone came to the door. Who knows? Let's make sure that we have an optimized abandoned cart sequence to actually handle and make the most of those people so that they don't lose out on getting your product in their hands. And so winning back the people that don't purchase, and that's a massive opportunity because most people don't purchase, right? If your conversion rate's 5%, 95% of people are not going to purchase. So this is a huge area in maximizing the sale. All right, number 9, get out of the way. And so in all the things that your website has to do, the number one thing it has to do is it has to do it all and get out of the way, right? It can't create more friction. Your design can't create more friction. Your technology, the platform that you're on can't be slow for no reasons or slower than it should be. It needs to be optimized and fast. It needs to be scalable. Your site can't go down. Your design needs to be optimized for the purpose that it has, which is communicating your brand and selling and doing all the previous 8 steps. And so getting out of the way is important. And how do you do that? You do that with things like choosing the right design team and designing with intention with these steps in mind. You do that through choosing the right technology that actually is scalable, doesn't fail in the wrong times, is fast, can support your site, can support your business, etc. You do that by not being too annoying in marketing, right? So there's a certain amount of annoyance that's important. It's actually urgency that you're creating. And those are pop-ups and things like that, right? And so make sure that those things don't get overly annoying to where they're frustrating people and they're leaving. Or the worst thing, sometimes you see a pop-up and actually breaks the page. Those are things that you really want to avoid. And they can easily kind of seep their way in this when marketing is just happening. Things like upsells, make sure that upsells and cross-sells are not distracting people from the purchase. And so there's a fine line between maximizing the sale and then losing the sale because we're distracting somebody or because we're annoying them. So you need to make sure you're not doing those kind of things. Ultimately, it's about really being intentional and not letting things get out of control as you're building an experience, a website experience that handles these 9 steps appropriately. If you do that, then your site's going to perform better and your e-commerce business is going to win more and your marketing is going to be better. And so designing an e-commerce store is not about making something look pretty. It's about building a store, building a website that is truly designed to convert. And it needs to look great, but also be intentional about handling these 9 steps that it takes to win the sale over. And so this means your homepage, your product detail page, even your about page needs to be constructed with a certain goal in mind. And each one of those pages has a certain role in the whole process of the customer experience. And so this is what we do. We help design sites that convert because we understand how to grow a brand from the ground up. We've done this for brands like Groove Life, Gibson Guitars, Old Spice, and more. And so if you're a brand that's doing 6, 7, or 8 figures and your site just isn't converting where you want it to be, maybe your marketing's not creating the results that it should, then contact us and we'd absolutely love to help you figure that out and see if there are ways to optimize that. Depending on the size of any e-commerce site, the site navigation, the site architecture can really make or break your e-commerce experience. And this really does depend on how complicated your product line is. But the more complicated your product line is, it becomes more critical. But this is not to be ignored for even someone who has a 1-product site. Your site architecture, your navigation structure, how you get from category, collection to collection, page to page, that really needs to be considered. And that's just a fancy way of saying, how do we group things together so that people find what they need as quickly and easily as possible? That's the goal, right? It's like we all hate when we're in a new, my wife sends me, hey, if you can go to the grocery store and pick up these 5 things, it'd be really great. And it takes me an hour to find those 5 things because I'm not familiar with the grocery store. The grocery store, for whatever reason, doesn't have a map or anything like that, and so it takes forever to find that. Now, some grocery stores have finally done better at this. Like Publix, I think, does this. And, even though it's not a grocery store, Home Depot does this, but, it'll tell you aisle 5, this is where you'll find this thing, whatever, And so they've improved that because they've seen that, hey, it's not really great when we send people wandering through a giant warehouse trying to find, Swiss Miss or something like that. And so your site is the same way. We want to get people through this, finding what they need as quickly and easily as possible, because otherwise our conversion rate's going to suffer. We're just not going to maximize the traffic we're sending there. And by the way, when your conversion rate, when this suffers, your ROAS suffers on your ads, other areas of your site that you're looking at, your marketing dollars don't go as far. It influences many other places. And so good navigation is like a really good map. It's meant to help people get to where they want to be as efficiently as possible. A bad map will waste their time, or an incomplete map would waste their time. It makes them frustrated. It has you running down certain paths and then back. And ultimately, it lowers conversion rates because people leave. It also may have your customers missing things that they may want to know about and potentially purchase. And that's the other side of this. It's not just minimizing distraction, or it's not just, or I said another way, it's not just maximizing your path through, but it's also making sure that they're seeing the products that they might want to buy and knowing about them. And so let's kind of get into this. Let's unpack what a well-optimized architecture can do and how it can increase conversion rate and average order value, which are 2 golden multipliers that can really multiply our business. Let's look into this. So we got 6 tips here. So the first one is make it simple. When it comes to navigation or site architecture, simple is really important. A good architecture and navigation doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to show everything It simply needs to get someone to the next correct step. And so that may be just getting them to the right category page. And then from there, they can drill down to the next category page. It is getting them down their path to the next step. It may not be a category page at all. It may not be a product at all. It could be a warranty or a brand page or something like that. So we should make it simple and go from there. The second tip is give multiple doorways into various products. And now what do I mean by this? Well, it's funny how some people, some brands, and I understand why this is, think that products can't sit in multiple categories. Well, they can. There's nothing wrong with putting products in different categories and them sitting in multiple categories. The goal isn't that all the information is tightly organized so that your accountant can review it. The goal is that products fall into the right places where users are going to look for them. And that may mean certain users walk through certain doors and certain other users walk through other doors. This may mean multiple ways that you have multiple ways to get to the same products because, different people think about those products differently. So for example, like you might have a product that sits inside of a sale collection. When we're doing promotions, we often like to create collections for that promotion for that particular sale. So that product may sit in that collection. But it also may sit in the men's collection. It may also sit in an outdoors collection. And that's okay. So we want to make sure that there are multiple doors, multiple pathways to our products. And that means creating doors for different people. The third tip is use really good design to allow someone to easily drill down and find their categories, their collections, or their products that they're looking for. Now, we've all used mega navs, mega menus, and they've gotten a lot better over the years. But those are those, big expanding menus at the top of the screen. Those can be really great, but they can also be very badly designed and very frustrating. And so you have to make sure that that's not happening. But if you have a complex and nested product line, then using great design and technology to allow the exposure of those products to the people when they want it, to your customers, is really important. That's a really great way to let someone navigate your entire or see really quickly the breadth of your architecture, the breadth of your product line. But you need to make sure it works on mobile. And you need to make sure it's organized in just simple ways. And that goes back to tip number 1. Don't use this method just because. And so you should only use a mega nav if you need to use a mega nav because you have a product line that warrants it. Otherwise, it just gets clunky, it just gets distracting, and just another thing that can break. And so there's no real need to do that. All right, tip number 4, use great page structures. And now we just talked about navigation. And I would say most people, when they think about site navigation or site architecture, they think about the navigation of their website. That's that top menu. But the truth is that all the elements on your entire site are leading into each other. Navigation is, and the journey through your site is actually the sum of all those elements, right? And so it's not just navigation of your website, the menu, it's also the page structure and how you create doorways on page into other areas of your site, into other products that lead to each other, that lead on an intentional path to purchase. And so the way you do this is by creating a cohesive site customer journey. And we'll link to that where we've actually discussed that in depth. The customer journey walks people naturally through your experience, right? It may intentionally bring someone through some brand pages or brand elements so that you're selling your brand, which is a concept we talk about a lot. That's so important. It may be how people get through one doorway if they have a certain type of interest and into that world or your world that you've created for them of that interest and leads them to the products that they might like. And ultimately that just ends up typically on collection pages that have certain filters attached to them or certain product pages, and so that they can easily purchase. But let them have places outside of your navigation to explore your products. Don't just think about this as the menu of your website. Something also to note here is that you need to design for two primary types of users. There is the browser. That's the person who doesn't know what they want necessarily, and they want to browse the store. So we want to make it easy for them to get around and logically get them to products and help them make a decision. Then you also need to account for what we call the laser. And that is someone who knows what they want and they just need to get there as fast as possible. And any distraction is more likely to frustrate them or make them leave than help them. So we need to account for that too. So we need to make it easy for them to find that thing, maybe the search bar, maybe a certain menu navigation at the top or something like that. All right, tip number 5, don't oversell. And so we talk a lot about the value of your brand and how you really need to win a fan. You don't just want a customer. Having someone buy your brand and not just your product is really what you want ultimately, because that is how you bring someone into your world and create value inside of your company. And so you need to make sure you bring your brand into the architecture that you designed. You need to weave it into the experience. So your architecture, your navigation, or your page structure shouldn't just be products and shouldn't just be selling. It should also be brand pages. You want to get customers to go through brand elements. And this is how you end up selling your brand and not just your product. Your navigation, your pages, the elements on your pages, they should all have ways to get you to branded pages that you're also selling those brand elements throughout, in addition to the products that you sell. Because ultimately, you don't just want a purchaser. You really want a customer who buys your brand, who ultimately can turn into a fan. And that's what's really valuable. And then our last tip number 6, it all starts with your customer. Now, this could actually be the first tip, but we left it for the last one because it is the most important one. If you haven't completed an e-commerce customer avatar, go to our site and actually complete that. Knowing your customer and knowing the types of customers and what influences them allows you to get into their mind and allows you to design your architecture and your site experience and your brand experience optimally for those different types. If you don't know those different types, then it is really hard for you to get into the mind of your customer because you don't know what their mind is. You don't know who they are. In order for you to complete this architecture, you're not designing your site for you. You're designing your site for your customers. And so you really need to understand who your customers are and how they think. And that starts with creating an e-commerce customer avatar, which you can get at our site. And so just kind of wrap this up. There is a lot to be gained from a good architecture, but there's actually more to lose from a bad one. And so just be simple and remember to think like your customer. And now, if you need help improving your e-commerce customer journey, we do that for a lot of brands, and we have a lot of experience there. So feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to help you.